Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready to take a bite out of the competition? Are you looking for ideas to make your business better? Welcome to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet,
sponsored by Apple Capital Group.
At the core of every successful business, you'll find people making a difference. And with each episode of the Core Business Show, we talk with those people, examine those ideas, and explore the strategies that make them special. Now, the host of the Core Business Show, Tim Jacquet.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Today, our topic is publishing in the 21st century with Bartleby Press with Thomas Miner. He's going to actually talk about publishing and talk about his company and how he got started and his success. If you'd like to join in the conversation, please give us a call at 347-324-3460, or you can go ahead and pose a question in the chat room, or you can go ahead and email us at info@thecorebusinessshow. Thomas, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Tim. How are you today?
It's Monday. Typical Monday. It's been a busy weekend as usual, and so anyway, thank you for joining the program. And to begin with, kind of tell us about yourself and how you guys started. Our listeners like to hear personal stories, how businesses get started. So, you don't mind, just tell us about yourself.
Oh, I'll try and keep it short. I'd hate to give away my age on this kind of show, but I was fortunate enough to find what I would love to do. My theory on things have been that if you find something that you love to do, it's not work. And you can get up every day and get out there and do your job without thinking about it and be successful and happy doing it. So I basically started off as a television production coordinator in New York City working for Gray Advertising, which is a great place to begin to get the fundamentals of marketing and strategy, working with P&G accounts and other retail accounts like Bloomingdale's. I eventually migrated down to the Texas area and began work in the area of producing television commercials in Austin, Texas. And that was very difficult in terms of steady work. And so I moved into more of the print world because I found that was a very steady area to be able to make money in and to be successful in. Of course, I moved immediately into the sales end of the business, so I was working for a lot of companies in their sales and sales advertising, which was great, again, background to begin a business. And my secret to beginning in the publishing world or breaking into the publishing world was the invention of the computer. I started my business on a Mac 512 Apple computer that I paid $10,000 for.
Wow.
Yeah, $10,000 back then. That was a lot of money, but it was cutting edge, and it actually broke the back in Linotronic. A little background in the print world, Linotronic was a photographic process in order to create the typeset that you would then create plates, metal plates with film. All that has now changed and evolved into direct plate to press procedures and all computerized and filled with technology. So it's been quite a process in the world and quite an evolving process. There's a lot of printers out there that I would imagine have gone the way of dinosaurs, that if they didn't move forward into the IT world and in the electronic world, they are no longer in business, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, really unfortunate. Kind of tell us, you mean to cut you off, go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. Go ahead. Ask a question.
It's kind of amazing. By the time I finished college in 89, and I was an intern at ABC station, and it's kind of amazing how we went from everything was print, and slowly in the 90s, I remember talking to a friend of mine. We were doing some stories back at the Houston Chronicle, and I needed to get a photo from her, and she said, I said, what do you think about this digital thing, digital photographs? She said, I don't trust it. It's not as clear as the real film and stuff like this. And we're talking like 1993, 94, no. Probably 94, 95, because we were doing a lot of community development stories. And she said, maybe in the future we'll change, but film is the way it is for right now. Kind of tell us about that process, because you spent $10,000 on your Mac. What has happened within the last 20 years that really, you have newspapers who are at the top of their game, things are really changing. from print media to now digital media. Kind of tell us that story, how things really evolved within the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it continues to evolve. And it's a real challenge for anyone in the print world to do it, to move forward and stay involved in it. But like anything else, I think the pendulum will swing. As far as the way the printing and the printing procedures went, and the way people market and get their product out there have almost gone reversal. For instance, in 1993, I think most businesses would spend 80-90% of their budget in the print world. They would do direct mail, they would do print in newspapers and magazines, and now it's totally reversed the other way. Take, for instance, the Yellow Pages. Anyone in business, or if you call up Yellow Pages now today, if you in 1993 you would pay anywhere between $300 to $2,000 a month to have a display ad in the Yellow Pages, and they would say, well, for $10 a month, we'll just list you on our website because we're just starting to get this thing going. Mm-hmm. Today, it's totally reversed. You'll pay that amount to have an ad on the website, and they'll throw in the print ad in the Yellow Pages. And I really don't know, and I ask a lot of people. I don't really know people that even pick up a Yellow Page book or a Yellow Book and look up businesses anymore. Everything has gone to Google. And so that's the way the print world has gone. A lot of your print material is in support of your electronic world. If you're going to send out and the standard is a business card. Everybody has a business card. And they'll hand it out, and they'll ask you to go visit their website. So as far as marketing is gone, in the world of print, it's totally evolved, reversed out, but not gone away. I think there's people that still love to have the printed sheet in their hand and work that way. I don't know if I answered your question properly.
You did.
It's a complicated question, and it's hard to capsulize and simplify in a very short time. But if you get specific on a question, then I can answer it.
That's just fine. When it comes to digital media today, and I know your company is on the cutting edge on digital media and even in printing, kind of tell us about what is digital media today, digital printing today. I mean, you have on your web, what's the difference between the digital printing and the offset printing?
Oh, speed, that's the deal. A lot of people, if you go back to your fundamentals about marketing, you got to identify your market, and then you've got to separate yourself from your competitors, and then you've got to map your message. In my world, mapping your message right now is part of what I sell as support to the print world, and that message changes on a daily basis. So people are marketers, especially in the web world or the world of social media world. They identify people when they're buying and what they're buying. So that would mean that the person that has the business needs to get their message mapped and put it out there, and that changes quickly. So they, in 2 weeks, print up a bunch of marketing collateral that supports one idea, and 2 months later they find out that if we map this message and we send this message out to them, that they'll buy our product because this is what they're looking for now, and we can support that idea. So when they come into me and they ask me to put some marketing materials together for them or print a brochure because they're going to some kind of event somewhere, they'll have 2 or 3 messages, and they'll want it changed in 24 hours. And that's where the digital printing comes in handy, because you can send it directly plate to press and get it out quickly within 24 hours. And that's the difference between digital and offset. If you want long runs and you want to print 50,000, 100,000 impressions, and you want to get something out, offset is the way to go. But it's a confusing topic because the digital world has married into the printing world. So you've got the digital setup, the way the presses are run, they're digitally set up the colors and everything. But offset is still where it's at.
Okay.
From an old print.
Wow. We're going to take a break real quick and be back in a moment with Thomas Miner. You listen to the Core Business Show.
You're listening to the Core Business Show, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed with a one-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com. Welcome back to the core. Once again, here's Tim Jacquet.
Well, we're going to go back and talk about, Thomas, the very beginning when you guys started with $10,000 with your Mac. How did you come up with your name of your company?
Oh, interesting question. Yeah, well, I originally started under Thomas Publishing Company, which you may or may not know is a big company on the East Coast. And then there was some confusion here in Texas with another company that was Thomas Publications. So I had to come up with something that was very different and identifiable, I guess. I am a Herman Melville fan, probably the only person you know that has read the book through, Moby Dick, the book, twice through. So that's a rarity in itself. And one of his short stories is Bartleby the Scrivener, which was a turn-of-the-century statement on the industrialization of the world. And Bartleby, if you know the story, was a scribe who wrote up real estate contracts. And that was before the digital world. So they had to have people that actually write the contracts up instead of putting it in the computer and printing it out, just what they can easily do today. So Bartleby, that was the one. I know it's not a good name when it comes to identifying yourself with the print world, but if you're well read, then you would know Bartleby Press, and that's how I came up with that.
Wow. So during that time, you had your Mac. How did you market yourself? And did you have any particular struggles as you transitioned from cushiony job and going out on your own?
Well, it was kind of interesting because I decided that I wanted to go into church publishing, Catholic church bulletins. There was a need to have those printed. It's a weekly publication that's handed out and given to everyone that attends church in places. But being able to get enough of that business in that area in order to make a living at was very difficult. So what I did is this is a funny story. I actually went into a bank and I asked them, I needed $10,000 for this printer and this computer Mac 12, which I know I could get a lot of business and I do newsletters with and all this and that. And he says, that's all fine and dandy, but you really don't have anything of value to substantiate me giving you this loan. He says, but what I could do is if you had contracts that covered the cost of this, then I would be willing to make the loan. So I went out and I negotiated with 2-3 companies that I knew needed newsletters printed and direct mail pieces they were doing from my advertising background. So I got contracts with them, and I actually went to a local printer here, one of the quick printers, or it wasn't Quick Print, but it was Insty Prints, is that who it was? And I approached the owner of that place, and I said, look, this is the new way the world is going. I can typeset faster than you can put out a line of Tronic. And of course, there's the drawback. Well, it's not as crisp as clear as this, and I don't know if it'll go. And I said, look, if it saves people money and it's good enough, it'll work. And so I contracted out with him to do some of his typesetting, and actually he gave me an office in his place, and I worked with him for about 15, 20 hours a week, and then I started taking care of my own clients eventually, and he was doing the printing for me because he had the presses and everything. And I eventually moved out of his office, grew, got my own office, bought my own press, another computer, another printer, another press, another employee, and here we are today.
Wow. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because I hear a lot of some businesses doing the same thing in the 80s, partner with large businesses and really working under them and using their space. A lot of music stores have done the same thing and transitioned to their own own business, which is bigger than the business they actually started with, which is really amazing. Wisconsin, I'm starting to hear a lot of stories of people in the 80s doing that. During this process of you going out to churches, were the churches really receptive? Because I know I know they had a struggle in printing their own material every single week, and the hours it takes for someone to print, not only print, but also staple and fold, this whole process would take a day. They had just a half a day just trying to type all the information together. When you came in there and offered this particular solution, hey, we'll print everything for you, it's no cost to you. How did you transition some of the churches to say, okay, all thing you have to do is just give us a type of how you want it done, and you're typing, you send it to us?
Well, it was nothing new. I started in 1983, and I had actually worked for another publisher, and I was working for them and really knew the ins and outs. My territory at that time was Texas and Louisiana. And it's something that is fundamental in the Catholic Church, where they hand out a newsletter of activities and events that are going on a weekly basis in their church community. It's not associated with the liturgy in any way, so it was a very valuable piece of information to hand out and keep people in touch and with their community. So for me to move into that area, I met a priest here in Austin, and a very good friend of mine, a visionary type of guy, Monsignor Richard McCabe. He's no longer with us, but as I often say to a lot of people, he was the last of what I refer to as street priests. This is a guy who was out there every day talking to people in business, and you would shake hands with him. He'd ask you what you do, and he says, "Oh, really? I know someone you should talk to, and you need to meet this guy, and that guy needs to meet you," and go on. So he's the one that really encouraged me and said, "You could really do this yourself. You could," because I had ideas about advancing the customer service. And the company I worked for was a very large company, and they were unable to provide that specific customer service for each church community. And this is what he wanted in his place. And he says, "You could really do this on your own. You should do this on your own." And that was the encouragement that really pushed me forward. Now, funny story. So when I did make the decision to go ahead and do this, I went to him and said, "Well, Father, is it okay if I publish your bulletin for you?" And he goes, "No, I've already signed with another company to have it published." So how that works and the way things go, and it just took a lot of, people talk about hard work, but it's knocking on doors, and it's following up, and it's listening to what people want and being there at the right time. That's how it works. And I don't know what else I would say to anyone else, but find something you love to do and then pursue it passionately.
Wow.
And see what happens.
So kind of tell us what you do a lot of church bulletins, and kind of tell us about the process. So some people are not familiar with the weekly activities. You allow the churches to send you the content, and what you do is print them and get it back to them later that week. Kind of tell us what the process normally involves.
Well, yeah, it was exactly like you say. For anyone that was printing their bulletins, and the church had always been doing this, and they used the old Gestetna process, if you remember that, in the 50s and 60s, which was that alcohol ink-based kind of turn the wheel and paper spit out and print. It's really funny that way. And so they actually had to set the type, lay it out, and put it into form where they could then reproduce it in a mass form. And it takes time, and especially in today's communities, there is so much information out there, and there's so much to be sent out. It takes a person doing a bulletin in a church. If they're doing it themselves, it's a full-time job. Collecting the information, typing it up, laying it out on a page so that all the information fits on the page, and then in some way reproducing it, folding it, stapling it, and then distributing out there. So if there's some church that is doing that right now, they probably have a copy machine or some kind of press or something in their office taking care of that kind of stuff. So the way it works in the church publishing business is there's advertising space available on the back page, and those advertisers, their cost defrays the cost of the publication to the church. So in reality, the church gets it for free. And the time it takes to produce it, which is just merely typing the information and emailing it to us, is maybe 4 or 5, 6 hours as compared to 3 or 4 days. So that kind of gives you an idea of how quickly it turns around.
Okay, and so they send it to you, and you guys normally just go ahead and print it and then send it back to them. And are you national or just regional?
No, regional, Texas only.
Okay.
I've always delved in. I got to say something about. I've always married into the world of technology and websites. I've had a website since the day one they've been going. I always try and incorporate the social media and drive that towards my business. Now I find that the print world is driving it to the website, so it's kind of turned around that way. But I don't know. Where was I going with that?
No, you were talking about the print side is turning to social media. And that's another interesting point of social media. How is social media impacting your business today?
Well, it's capturing the message. There's a lot of companies out there that listen to the tweets and the blogs and everything that's out there. And their job is to key in and pick up special words that people talk, meta tags. And they listen in on conversations because it's wide open out there. And then they process that information and they say, for instance, if you click on somebody's website, you might get a phone call 10 minutes later saying, I noticed you clicked on our website. Were you interested in buying that product? And you went to this page on my website and looked at it. Did you have an interest of buying my product? That's totally amazing.
Wow.
That someone could rattle you that well. And I've had it happen to myself when I'm on the line looking for presses or whatever I'm looking for, and to get that phone to ring and say you were just on my site looking, I was like, wow, it's almost Big Brother. But it's very good. But the social media, what they do is they pick up the message of people talking about it, and in a much larger capacity. If you got someone in large corporations and they got a need for a widget in this area, and they're talking to their buddy halfway across the world, and they're saying, I found that this widget needs to act this way, and I wish I knew somebody that had this widget that would do this, or could we put that in there? Someone's listening on the other end, and they're saying, oh, well, he may be ready to buy, or he may not be ready to buy, but he's interested in this widget. Someone should contact him. And that's where you'll get an email, or you'll get a phone call, or you'll get something in your mail that says some kind of invitation to a webinar. And
so where do you see where we headed in the future?
In the future, as far as the print world, I don't think will ever go away. It'll never capture the same share of market that it has in the past. But I think if you go out to your mailbox and you open the mailbox, you do not find as much junk mail as everyone complained about 15 years ago. There's just a lot of junk coming in. The junk is on your email, in your email box now. Mm-hmm. And I think the pendulum is swinging that people will now revert back, or I would say the smart people would still incorporate in some way print, direct mail, or a printed piece that supports their website and get people to go to the web. So print will always, I think, have an impact. And the biggest example of that, and we're moving into it, is the political season. You will see postcards, you will see direct mail people soliciting for fundraising and things of that nature. Even your nonprofits nowadays still do that. They still send out invitations. They still invite people to come to special galas or events that they're having, silent auctions, and they'll always send out invitations, and they'll do it through the mail. I think there's something special about a printed piece. It lends itself to credibility, tangibility. I think people are... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. People?
I think people are smarter now that, oh, gee, let me Google you, and, oh, you have a website, and, oh, you must be legitimate. But people now, is he legitimate or isn't he legitimate? Is this some guy in his garage, or is this a real legitimate place? And I think that when you get white papers, or you get brochures, or you get folders with information, it just lends itself to more credibility that the business is real and that they've been around and they can deliver what they say they can deliver.
Wow. Lastly, can you give us also your address, your website address, and contact information if we need to contact you?
Yeah, it's www.bartlebypress.com, and that's spelled BartlebyPress.com. BartlebyPress.com. Yeah, and if you want to give me a call, I'm at 512-452-3413.
Great. And we can find you also on Facebook, Twitter. You have a blog and also on LinkedIn.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
Great.
Always connected that way.
Great. Well, Thomas, thank you for joining the program today.
Well, thank you for having me, Tim. I really appreciate it, and I hope it is some value to someone out there that's starting up and wants to get their business off the ground.
Great. Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. Have a great day.
Okay. Same here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Again, this has been another production of The Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. You can download this episode on iTunes and Blog Talk Radio. Everybody, thank you for listening. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to The Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. For a free quote on equipment leasing and financing, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com. And fill out the information to receive your free quote. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And remember, you can always get to the core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. Thanks again for listening to The Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.